Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Jabez Experience. My name is Helen V. Hicks. I'm a licensed professional counselor, a parenting coach, an author, podcaster, mother of five, and this is my co-host.
Hi, everyone. My name is Curtis Brooks. I am a men's life coach specializing in transformational leadership for men.
Awesome. So tonight our topic is life beyond fear. So I know the aspect and the nature of this discussion has been talked about numerous times over, and we have a long list of acronyms to prove it. So
We're about to resurrect it. Huh?
and hopefully in a different way. I am not going to put a judgment of better or worse, but just different. Right. So, okay. I can jump in terms of what I've adopted in regards to living life beyond fear. Right. Because this has gone through my own personal journey and, my spiritual journey, spiritual development, and learning different aspects about this. So this is my belief. You can join it. You cannot join it. It's perfectly fine. So what I've come to believe is there are two major forces within the world that we exist in. And the one force is fear, and the other force is love. And these are opposing forces. And you have to continuously and consistently make the choice between the two. Are you going to choose the fear response, or are you going to choose the love response? And when I talk about love, I'm really focused on you loving yourself first. I know there's a lot of emphasis in showing everybody else up, and that's great and that's wonderful. But the honest truth is, it has to start with you. You have to know how to love yourself and be comfortable loving yourself and be in a genuine place with that. So what you give to others is also genuine, and it's not out of a place of, oh, I should, and I ought to, and this is what's expected, and this is obligatory, but in a genuine place of love because you have filled yourself with love. So I like to look at a lot of different aspects in terms of, you can only have this choice. It's either a choice of fear or it's a choice of love. And when you focus on how do you love yourself in this particular situation? And sometimes loving yourself is just about saying, you know what, this situation sucks and I really don't like it. And what I need comfort. I need to know that it's going to be okay, that I'm going to come out on the other side. And getting wrapped up in all the what ifs and getting on what I call the thought train is not going to help you feel loved, and especially not by yourself. So what are your thoughts, Curtis?
Yeah, I think that's awesome what you've shared, and I think that as you stated, that there are two opposing forces, and I think the moment that we recognize that we're going to be a lot better off, I think for a lot of us, and I think that a lot of us are just concentrating on trying to give love and trying to give love and trying to be love and show love, but yet we have not looked at ourselves. We have not looked at the parts that we don't like and that no one else likes. And I think that it is a part of our discussion that needs to be had within our own selves, because when we can make nice, I'll use those words there, when we can make nice with the things that are not lovable about us and begin to come in with a union, if you will, an understanding, and not beat ourselves up for things that we know, and perhaps those things go back to mom and dad or some part of our family or something that had taken place, or abuse, mental, emotional, or physical, or even sexual abuse, and it's caused us to not like certain things about ourselves, or not like certain things about our parents, or the person who the offender. and having to get over those things. I think fear will keep us fear will keep us grounded, if you will. And there are times when we times in life where we need to move from that space and know that it's okay. But fear keeps us grounded. Fear keeps us immobile, if you will, stagnant. And I think there's a bunch of truth what you've spoken, Helen, in regards to just how this fear really just uh, the word that comes to mind makes us compensate for the rest of our lives. Potentially, it can make us having to pay things twice, pay things three times, four times. And our podcast is it's called the Jabez Experience for a reason, because it has come from a biblical, spiritual standpoint. But at some point, we need to make sure that, or at least understand that there's a price that's already been paid, and fear keeps us having to compensate, just compensate those things over and over for the things that we didn't understand, or just things that have happened to us. And at some point, the payment has to be recognized that there's been a payment that's already been paid already.
Okay. So I kind of like the part you were talking about in regards to paying the price,
Mm-hmm.
because I see that happen a lot with my clients who are constantly beating themselves up. And it comes from that place of fear that they're not good enough, that they messed up, that, they don't know enough, they're not skilled enough, like whatever it is. And those thoughts are torturous, and it's like they're constantly paying the price for whatever so-called mistake they made sometime in the past. And I know I've said this before, but I'm so grateful that when I was a teenager, my father told me there's no such thing as mistakes. Like, you do things one way or the other, you get an outcome one way or the other, and you either got what you wanted or you got something to learn.
Yes.
Everything is a learning experience. Don't look at things as if it's a mistake. It's not a mistake.
Right.
It's a learning experience. You learn that way doesn't work, or that way doesn't work for you. And I try to say this to so many people as possible. Like, if you could just shift your mindset away from the idea of you made a mistake to you just had an opportunity to learn, which means you had an opportunity to grow. And it's completely up to you if you're going to take the opportunity to actually grow, or if you're going to do what Curtis was just talking about, of constantly making yourself pay the price over and over and over and over and over again, which results in, what you were saying about being stuck. Like, you can't move forward if you are just constantly reliving the past. You have to be able to learn from it first, and then utilize self-love to forgive yourself and let it go. Like, I like to come from a place of when people are beating themselves up, and I'm very straightforward in terms of, because as human beings, we are geared towards self-preservation. There's rarely anything that we will willingly do to put ourselves in danger. I'm not saying there's never, instances against that, but for the most part, we're all about self-preservation. And so what that really means is, whenever we are faced with making choices, our inclination, our natural design is towards self-preservation. So in that moment, you make the choice that you believe, based on the information you have, your skills, your resources. Based on all of that, you make what you believe in that moment to be the best choice. But instead of people being able to see it that way, that you made your best choice at that moment, they beat themselves up after the fact, when you have information, when you've built different skills, you have different resources, and you're like, oh man, I should have known. Had you known, of course you would have chose something differently. So this is about letting it go, that you didn't have a crystal ball, you didn't have a magic wand, you didn't have anybody telling you your future, or anything of that nature. You did your best. So let it go and move forward with self-love, and let go of that fear that's keeping you trapped.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I think for me, coming from perspective, just listening to what you were just saying, I think that or I see fear, at least people having challenges letting go of fear, or the thing that either they were offended by or that offended them, or I think that it's like digging a hole, and then you're digging deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, to the point where, as Helen stated earlier, as Helen stated earlier, there is absolutely two opposing forces, and because we don't want to recognize that, and just because we don't accept it or say, "Oh, that's not true," doesn't mean that it's not true. The reality of it is that there are two opposing forces, and we all deal with them. That those two opposing forces is pressure on every last human being. We can have thoughts of love in one moment, and next moments we can have thoughts of hate, and it is just the reality. And there's no way to sugarcoat that, try to fix it up. It's just the reality, and we have to deal with things from a reality. And just because you have gone through something does not mean that your life is over. And I think for me that this is why my faith is so important. And again, not trying to convert anyone or anything like that, but as a believer, as a Christian, uh, this is so important to me, because now I realize, I understand on a greater level, that no one gets to hold those cards for me anymore. No one gets to hold me hostage by what I didn't do out of sheer ignorance or something of that sort, or because I don't have enough money, or I'm somewhere in lack or some situation. No one gets to hold me hostage anymore. No one gets to hold you hostage anymore. Here's a solution. And as a believer, the solution for me was Christ, because he's in a place where moth, nor rust, nor corruption can destroy him. And this is what the Bible reminds us. So no one has the authority unless we give it to them. Because if you're still holding on to it, and as Helen said, just let it go. If you're still holding on to it, knowing that even if you are a Christian, if you're still holding on to it, that means that you're trying to do the work of Christ. That means that you're trying to fix yourself. A physician, that the scriptures say, heal thyself, but that means as a believer, or even if you're a non-believer, that means that we're trying to stitch our own arm up. How difficult is that? Trying to do heart surgery on yourself. How difficult is that? And for me, my reliance on Christ has been the difference. It has been the difference. And I say that because it's someone whose thoughts are higher than my thoughts, someone whose thoughts are different than mine, from a completely different perspective, something I did not look at in the midst of the challenge that I may have been facing, or in the midst of the challenge that you may be facing, a perspective that you did not consider. And so for me, this is what I love about Christ, because he offers me perspective that I did not consider, that I did not see, that in most cases, most of us don't see it, because we have to place someone in authority of our lives first. Because if we're trying to be the authority in our own right, in our own understanding, there's all kinds of stuff that's what I like to call the low-hanging fruit that we happen to take on as part of our nature. All kinds of stuff out here. But when we take on the one who had taken the burden for us, And for me, this is a real thing. And I can understand those who are dealing with fear or who are in that place. I can understand it. And in most cases, I don't know what you dealt with. But I know that when you put things in the right perspective and you're ready to hear different perspective, you can accept that the stripes and the things that Christ had gone through, it was for us. It was for you. And he's ready to say, hey, cast your cares upon me, for I care for you. And that means your fear too.
Absolutely. So a couple of things kind of came to mind for me while you were speaking, and one is, a saying I think I mentioned maybe like in some earlier episodes, which is the mind that created the problem cannot be the one to fix it.
Well
So
said.
it
I love that. Yeah. Well said.
speaks to what you're talking about. Like you need someone, you know, whatever you believe in. I'm just an advocate that people believe in something above and beyond themselves.
Yeah.
So, but you need something of a different mind, to help you get unstuck. If you're
Yeah.
stuck, then that means you're seeing things in a way that isn't helping you to progress or to get wherever it is that you want to go. You need someone who's able to see it differently to help guide you out of it, and I think that kind of speaks to a different aspect. It wasn't the direction I planned on going in, but it popped into my head. So the mind that creates the problem can't be the one to fix it. It also speaks to the dynamic so many people fall into, is that when you start feeling hurt and you start feeling depressed, and you start feeling all these negative weights of life, what is the one thing most people do almost immediately?
Right.
They isolate. They
Absolutely.
pull away from
Mhm.
all the other minds that could possibly help them see this differently. So
Mm.
now you're compounding whatever your situation is by cutting yourself off from the possibility of having some other type of perspective. Because as you're talking about, Christ being that light and that guiding force for you, Curtis, people who may not have that type of relationship with God, or whatever their belief system may be, it doesn't mean that God's not working in their life. So
Absolutely.
it may require someone else, a friend, or sometimes even a stranger, to
Sure.
say things, to introduce particular perceptions and ideas to help guide them out of where they are. So when you start feeling all these weights, instead of pulling back and going into that deeper, darker space all by yourself, that's when you truly need to be connecting with other people and introducing those different minds and those different perceptions that can help shed some light on the situation for you.
Yeah, absolutely, Helen. I love what you said in regards to that part where you mentioned about, I like to say, shrink back and or even going into that cave, going into hiding, or we isolate ourselves, as you said. And for me, it just really solidifies the two forces that you mentioned of in the very beginning, that there are in fact two forces, and that one force wants us to isolate. It will make us feel as if we're the only person that's dealing with that situation. And you got, I think it was 7 billion, 8 billion people on Earth. And so, do you really believe that you're the only person dealing with that said situation?
Not
Absolutely
at
not.
all.
Absolutely right. And so, it reminds me that when we are in certain situations, as you just stated, it is absolutely, it goes against the nature now. It goes against the nature of human beings to ask for help, because we like to try to figure things out ourselves. And I was sharing with Helen with the pre-show, that I recently started a class, a marketing class, and or a challenge that is, and I had to face my fear. That fear was that, or at least acknowledging that, wait a minute, all the things that I have known about marketing, in most cases, I picked up tidbits of pieces here and there. And so I've had to realize for myself, acknowledge that where I'm at, initially it wasn't a fear, but I had to acknowledge what I was doing wasn't working. And it became a fear because, hey, you know what? Sometimes time isn't on our side. And so we've got to make the best of it. And it's just important for me, it was important to be in a place where I'm doing the things that I need to do to take care of my family. And so I'm looking at someone who's doing a lot better than I am. But along the way, as I was crossing the line, if you will, reluctantly, as I was crossing the line, there was fear. There was fear of letting go of what I've known to do, but also accepting that, hey, you know what? My time is up in regards to trying to stitch my own self up. And I have to be honest with myself that there's certain things that I don't know, or I need a different perspective. And from those different perspectives, thus far, it has really kind of lifted a burden and allowed me to see the light that's out there. It allowed me to see opportunities and being connected with men and women alike who are making millions of dollars each year. And I know this is not about money, but it's about uncovering the limitations that we have, that we may have personally, and or even professionally, that at times seep over or carry over into other parts of our lives and prevent us from being the best version of ourselves.
Right, absolutely. So something that kind of like popped into my head again is listening to your story is that fear often brings along its two best friends, shame and guilt.
Absolutely.
And you know, all three of them tend to pile up on top of people, and these become the forces that keep you stuck. So because you become afraid of that new thing, that different thing, that thing that's unfamiliar, and you know, you can't predict exactly how it's going to be, and you can't guarantee if you're going to get the outcome that you want. And so it's fear that is preventing you from moving forward. And then shame and guilt come along and they lock you down in place.
Absolutely.
and they make you feel bad and awful and terrible
Yeah,
about being where you are, but yet fear
absolutely.
won't let you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So these are things that they do come. And this isn't about saying that any one of us is ever going to get to a place where you never experience fear, shame, or guilt. It's not about that. They're emotions, and emotions are reactions to situations and things that are going on around you. The hope is that, yes, they're going to show up, but you are not going to sit and entertain them. Like you can acknowledge that that is fear that is showing up. You can acknowledge that shame and that's guilt that's showing up. But then you can also say, I choose not to sit here and have a party with them, drinking
Right.
their tea that's going to have me breaking down in tears and feeling like nothing. So that's the choice that you get to make. And coming back to, if you're choosing between fear and love, that's when you get to say, hey, I recognize that you showed up. I recognize that that situation over there is the reason why you showed up, but I'm also making a conscious and intentional choice, but I'm going to love me anyway. I'm going to recognize that I still deserve to be somewhere better. I still deserve to have the things that I want and need. I still deserve to be able to take care of myself and my family in the way that I want to. And that's the choice that helps you get out of that and to see the light and to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely, Helen. Absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, it was just a, even as you're talking, I was thinking, I said, wow, man, fear can have us in a place where so much time has gone by, and You're sitting in a false reality, a false state, basically, and almost as if life is just going by you, and we're just captivated, in every sense of the word, captivated, looking at the thing, the fear, or the situation that's happened to us, or the regret, or the shame, the guilt. One of the three cousins, as Helen stated, that shows up in the midst of fear. So much time can be squandered, if you will. So much
Right.
time can be sacrificed. And next thing you know, you're 40, 50 years old, and it's just gone by, and you're still dealing with this thing. And yet fear, fear just abuses us. Fear just abuses us, man. Think about it. And it's such a freeing thing. And I think for me too, as I was crossing the line myself, and as we've been talking about this fear in the situation, or the marketing class, and perhaps a marketing class is not your situation. I get that, and I'm not trying to minimize what individuals may be dealing with, but it's basically coming to a consensus and deciding to cross the line, and to know where you're at in fear, that perhaps you've been there for 30 years, or 10 years, 5 years, 5 years too long, 10 years too long, 1 year too long, 1 month too long. Much like the man at the pool of Bethesda, when Jesus approached him and said, "Will thou be made whole?" And so my question to you is, will you be made whole? Or will you re-examine your fear for the umpteen thousand times? Because that's what happens. We get in our minds and we're examining this thing over and over and over, thinking that we're going to do something different. And that was the same for me. And again, your situation may not be taking a marketing class, but in itself, fear has us captivated, examining the very thing that we are in regret about, or we've offended someone, or we were offended, again, through a host of different things. It can have us captivated, unable to participate in life, unable to be effective in life, and unable to affect the things that need to be changed in our lives. Fear keeps us stagnated. And much like with myself, as I shared my situation with you, is that I've had to let go of the former beliefs. I've had to make a conscious effort, as Ellen stated so nicely. I've had to make a decision to let go of the former beliefs because they were not working. So,
Right. So, yeah, you're talking, and I'm just reminded, like, my favorite acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real.
yeah.
And I know we went over like 4 or 5 of them that are out there. I felt like they're starting to get more increasingly complicated.
Yeah, they are. That's funny.
But no, I've always kind of reminded myself of fear is just false evidence appearing real. Um, and it's just basically saying that in that moment, you experience something. Because I don't want to just say it's something that you see, but
Right.
you experience something, and you jump to an assumption, you jump to a conclusion of this
Mhm.
must mean, this must be, and there's nothing else in there that's truly supporting it.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Well said.
But you latched on to this assumption of, oh my gosh, it must be it, this is a sign. And so I've always been of the thought to challenge it, though. Like, is there really evidence to it? Is there something else that someone else
Mhm.
can look at, they can touch, they can hear it, they can experience it somehow and say, yes, that's exactly what it is. And when I challenge people to do that, when I challenge, okay, I want you to find the thing that you have convinced yourself means A, B, or C.
Mm.
Let's talk about it. And let's see if I also see it as it means A, B, or C.
Right.
Because the truth is constant. Like,
Hmm.
the truth doesn't change. So
Yes. Yeah.
if whatever it is that you're experiencing is indeed true, then other people are going to join with you and see it as true as well. But if you have this person over here saying it's A, and this one says it's B, and this one says, no, that looks like an F. And then
Now you're doing something completely different.
right. It's like, where did you come from? But the fact that there is no consensus,
Hmm.
that goes towards like, that's not true. Whatever that assumption is isn't true, because there are way too many ways to interpret it. So I want people to be able to like have some way of, I guess, questioning yourself, challenging the fear, because the biggest thing about fear is it doesn't go away until you face it.
Absolutely.
So you being able, well, not being able to, but you retreating from it and running from it and hiding in your cave and in your darkness
Hmm.
all by yourself, and just, no, 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 I don't want to stay away. Like, that is never going to make it go away.
Hmm.
Like, you have to confront it. You have to challenge it. And when you challenge it, that's when you see, oh, that's not real. That's not the thing that's truly going on here. That's not what I actually need to do. It's not really this thing that has power over me. Then you get to reclaim your own power, and you get to say, no, I want something different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely powerful, Helen. And it makes me think about a person being in a relationship, and a relationship with fear, and where that fear has become the dominant partner in the relationship. Fear dictates your life, and fear is keeps us prevents us from moving forward. Fear just has control. Fear is in control, and I think that for those who are dealing with fear, and trust me, I know it goes well beyond a marketing class, uh, but that's just obvious, just an example. But fear, much in the Bible, like in the Bible with the gentleman that was the pool of Bethesda, fear prevented him from moving forward and getting his healing, and much in the sense from what you may be dealing with. Fear is preventing you from moving forward and moving beyond your fear. And I would just caution you to be prepared to sever the ties with that abusive relationship, because we can commonly look at abuse coming from a person, a physical person, be it man or a woman or a child. We can look at those abuse coming from those individuals, and we can say, again, we can touch it. It's tangible. These people are real. But once these people are no longer there, perhaps the fear is just the the burden that we're left with. But now maybe it's been 5 years, 10 years, or whatever the case may have been. These individuals have gone on with their life, and now you're in a relationship with the fear, unable to do life on your own terms, on terms different from what they dictated to you.
Right.
So these individuals are still, in a sense, they're not there, but they're there. And we have to be prepared to sever the relationship, sever the ties with those toxic relationships, and begin to love on ourselves. And I think even that loving ourselves in our own minds, and I know this is probably a different topic as we're wrapping it up, but loving ourselves can absolutely be dysfunctional because of our beginnings. Love is, many of us have our own ideas of what love looks like, but learning to love yourself and look at how other people are taking care of themselves might be a solution.
Great. So I really like the analogy you gave of your relationship with fear is an abusive relationship. And I think that's really dynamic to think
Mm,
of it that way, to think, no, this is an abusive relationship.
mm,
This is something that is, its only desire is to control you. Its only desire is to manipulate you and to alter your reality and your experience in life and to tell you that you can't have, whatever those good things are. And it tells you that you don't deserve those
mm,
good things. I think that's a great way of just looking at, your relationship with fear. Like you are in an abusive relationship. And unlike real life
yeah,
situations that are abusive, this one is a lot easier to get out of. And it
mm,
starts with you just making a choice within yourself that you no longer want to entertain the
yes,
fear.
mm,
And you're talking about self-love, and people don't always have positive
right,
examples of
yeah.
self-love, and they hear self-love and they're like, what is that? What am I supposed to do with that?
I had this visual when you said that, but go ahead.
No, I want to hear
No, no, I,
it.
I had this visual. But self-love, this person is just feeling just weird about touching their shoulder, trying to kind of hug themselves, or just feeling inadequate, just about appreciating themselves.
Right, right, definitely. So I like to share, I like to simplify self-love,
Please
but I
do,
do
please
like
do.
that image where you're kind of like, oh, I'm gonna get myself I like that image. But so I know I've said this before, but self-love starts with never using your words against you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yourself names. You're
Mm,
not going to put yourself down. You're not going to beat yourself up. You're not going to tell yourself all the things that you're not and you can't be. Um, and then you're going to replace all that negative self talk with kindness, patience, love, and compassion. And that's how you're going to talk to yourself. And you're going to say, hey, look, nope, this didn't go the way we expected, the way we wanted to, but it's going to be okay. There's tomorrow is a new day, and tomorrow we'll explore some other resources, some other options, and we're going to figure this out. And when you talk to yourself the way you would a friend that you love and appreciate and you want to support, you treat yourself like that, all of this begins to shift.
right.
And those clouds begin to remove themselves and the sun comes back out and you have more energy and you have more desire and you have more thrive for your own life. But it all starts with not using your own words against you. Like when you hear that start to come up, being able to stop, say, no, stop, not going there. And I've told, some of my clients that sometimes if I'm in a place and I can't think of anything kind, compassionate, patient, or kind to say to myself, I'll just say, just say self-love, 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 self-love.
Mm,
And you do that long enough and it helps you to at least not entertain the negative.
mm,
And so kind of coming back to a previous point of that the truth is constant. So when we're trying to uncover what love really is, if you were to ask 1,000 people, and I'm not telling you to go out there and ask 1,000 people, but I'm just saying, if you were to ask 1,000 people what love is, and you get all these different answers, I would tell you to look at the most consistent answers.
mm,
And that should be your guidepost for what love is, because the truth is consistent. The truth shows up. I mean, we can see it throughout the books that have been written across time with
Absolutely.
people who never had any contact with each other at all. How did this person say the same thing as that person? They didn't
Mm,
even know each other existed.
right.
Because the truth is constant. So if you need a guidepost, something to help you get from where you are to where you want to be, seek out the truth. Seek out what is constant.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a powerful ending there. And I'm just going to say this simple thing is that our words, and I really love what Helen was saying was about our words, and just don't use words against yourself. And our words are the mirror that we're looking into. So if you're using negative words, that's the mirror that you're looking into. If you're using positive words, that's the image you're going to get back. That's the image that's going to be the reflection of what you're looking at. So,
Great. So I'm sorry, you said something I'm just going to dip a little bit into, and we're definitely done. You're talking about your words. And I don't know if I've ever said this before, but definitely want to say it now. Our words are our power to create.
absolutely.
Like everything that we tell ourselves becomes our reality. When we
Mm,
tell ourselves we can't, we don't.
yeah.
When we tell ourselves we can, we do. You know, like everything that we tell ourselves about ourselves and about the
Mm,
world around us. When we tell ourselves that that group of people over there is bad, then what do? We find things to
yes.
support our perception of, oh, see, told you, bad.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your words are your power to create. And so when we talk about, life beyond fear, then it's about using your words to create that life beyond fear, to escape from that abusive relationship and to
Mm,
create your life of love. And it starts with how you talk to yourself.
mm. Yeah, well said. Absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for being with us for another episode of the Jabez Experience. And we hope you come back again next week.
Right. Ciao, everybody.
Bye bye.